Hey everyone, my name is Nicole Saunders and I oversee the user community here at Zendesk. Before we dive in today, we wanted to make sure that you're aware of the resources that you have available to you to keep the conversation going and connect with everybody after today's event is over. So first we have our online community forum. If you've never seen it or if you haven't been there in a while, I encourage you to click over and check it out. You can find it at zendesk.com/community. The forum's a great place to ask questions, connect with other users, learn some tips and tricks about Zendesk, and overall build your network. In addition to the community forum, we also offer a couple of events every month. We do virtual events similar to this one, where we offer access to Zendesk experts and we do deep dives into best practices and tips and ways to use Zendesk products. So I know that we're talking about self-service today, and the next community event that we have coming up is on June 17th, and the topic is how Zendesk does knowledge management. You'll have an opportunity to hear from Zendesk's own knowledge management team and ask some questions yourself. So we're going to drop the registration link for that in the chat. I encourage you to sign up and check it out. If you can't make it to the event, we will have a recording. And so if you register, we'll make sure to get you a link to that. And then if you want to head over to events.zendesk.com, you can see all of the interesting things that we have coming up in the next couple of months. All right, well, check out the community. We hope to see you over there and enjoy the meetup today.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing well as well. And welcome, everybody. I'm Sarah Reed from Zendesk, and I am joined today by Jeremy Corman, Jeremy, what's your actual title?
So I'm a senior product marketing manager here at Zendesk, and I oversee a lot of our self-service technologies.
So is it correct to say that you are probably a self-service expert?
I think it's definitely fair to say I am a very serious self-service nerd, and I love talking about everything related to self-service.
Well, that's a good thing because this is our Zendesk user group event, and we are here today to talk all about self-service best practices. So if you didn't have a passion for self-service, I was going to have to kick you out of this little bubble and find someone else. So I'm really glad that you're as interested in this as I am and as the rest of our group is. So why don't we go ahead and get started?
Yeah, let's do it. So yeah, I guess if it wasn't obvious enough, we're your two hosts today. Here you go.
Well, I like that. And it's always funny when you put up the slide and we're in opposite sides of the bubbles that we're actually in live. So next time we're going to have to do a little flip-flopping. But with all that said, tell us a little bit about how you got started in self-service, because I do think that this is a really fascinating bit of trivia.
Yeah, so I think my passion for self-service really started from my days working as an agent. So in a past role, I was part of a support team. So I was answering emails, answering phone calls, and it doesn't take long when you start seeing the same question over and over again that you really start to appreciate the value of a well-written knowledge-based article, both from the agent side and from the customer side. I really quickly saw how it was just so nice to be able to give customers the answer to their question in a way where you just knew it was going to solve it for them. It had it clearly written out exactly what they needed to do. And then on the agent side, especially when you're a new agent and you get a random question and you're like, man, I have no idea what the answer to this is. And then you just search your knowledge base and you find that article, you just feel this sigh of relief. You're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be okay. This is the answer to my question. I think that's really where my passion for well-stocked knowledge bases and good self-service capabilities started from.
I like that well-stocked knowledge base. And we're going to talk a lot about that today, but it's even more important than ever right now because we are no longer, our agents aren't sitting next to each other like they used to be. And they can't just turn to the side and ask their desk mate a question. Instead, they rely more and more on that knowledge base. And so do our customers. So let's jump in.
Yeah, so I think this is just a really quick breakdown of what we're kind of going to go through here. I have a few trends that I really want to share with this whole group, some things we've seen over the past year. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then after we do that, we're going to bring in a panel to join us, and we're going to talk more about all things related to self-service and best practices. So I guess I can just jump in to a couple things here. Oh, I forgot to say, and then the last kind of second half of this hour, so the last 30 minutes, is going to be our breakout rooms. So that's when we're going to split out into some industry-specific breakouts where we can talk. Everyone who's here in the audience, you guys can talk to each other. There'll also be people from the Zendesk team in those breakout rooms as well.
And just a quick reminder to everyone, we are taking questions during the panel discussion. So if you want to go ahead and drop any questions that you might have for our other self-service experts in the Q&A, we'll make sure to get to them.
Awesome. So I guess with that, there's a few things that I'm really excited. I just want to share with you guys a few trends. Is that okay, Sarah? Can I jump into this?
Yes, I like some data. So let's look at some statistics.
Okay, cool. So this is from our CX Trends report. And if you're not familiar with CX Trends, this is a really awesome survey that we do every year. So this is conducted by Zendesk. We reach out to 90,000 companies across 175 countries. And this is just one way that we try to keep a pulse on the market, on our customer base, just to see, how are people feeling? And these are two things that really stood out to me that we found in the 2020 report. First of all, obviously 2020 was a crazy year. We had the biggest work from home experiment ever conducted. The world got flipped upside down, pretty quickly. And one thing we saw is for CX teams, ticket volumes also saw a huge surge. So 20% increase in support requests was kind of the average we saw across the board. The other thing we saw was, as everyone's working from home, as businesses are going through all these changes, we saw that 75% of businesses agreed that their adoption of digital technology substantially increased. So the world's getting crazy, more tickets are coming in, and then businesses are also adopting more technology. That's kind of the main takeaway there.
That's a pretty good theme, and certainly one that we've talked about since the beginning of the year. When the CX Trends report came out, last quarter we talked about the digital tipping point, which really hits on this point of this acceleration of the adoption of digital technology. And coming up, we're actually going to talk a lot about agility the next quarter, which the themes are just, they keep coming in these statistics, and this data is just so rich. So thanks for sharing a bit of this. What's next?
Yeah, so actually when it comes to this adoption of digital technology, the one thing I wanted to touch on is why we're seeing self-service being one of the main ways that people are investing. So I think this is something we can all relate to, but these are just a few stats. This is actually taken from Gartner. And if you look at the column on the left, what this is showing is that 70% of customers attempt to self-serve. So this is a trend that we're seeing. It's continuing to grow. More people just want to solve. They want to solve their issues on their own. As much fun as it is to call and talk to a human agent, the reality is most people don't want to do it. They just want to solve the answer on their own. I know that's how I feel. My first instinct when I have a question is I just want to Google it. I want to find the answer and be on with my day. But what we find is that 9% of people actually accomplish what they're looking for. So there's a huge opportunity there.
Why is this discrepancy so huge? Why do we have this massive number of people wanting to self-serve, but such a small fraction of them are actually able to accomplish what they're looking for?
Yeah, I think this is kind of the opportunity. There's just so many businesses still have not fully embraced self-service. They don't have a public-facing help center. They don't have a great place to go to for those FAQs. Or maybe they even do, and it's just not easy for customers to discover those resources. Maybe they're outdated. Maybe they don't have a fully functioning team to support this thing quite yet. But there's just, businesses have this opportunity to do more with self-service, and that's kind of what we're seeing with some of these stats here. But the last thing I wanted to point out is also there's a huge opportunity on the business side. You just think about the cost per contact when you have an agent or a human handling a case. The cost is going to vary, but a good ballpark number is around $8 per contact. Of course, it's going to vary a little bit based on your cost of living, your cost of doing business. But no matter what it is, the cost per contact when you move to self-service is always going to be orders of magnitude less expensive. So there's a huge opportunity there to save a lot of money.
This slide in itself, if you want to, we will be sharing the slides out afterwards. But yeah, this is the slide that you take a photo of and you send to whomever is your roadblock right now in getting a proper self-service strategy in place.
Absolutely. So I think the last thing I just wanted to throw up here are a few kind of best practices, a few seeds I want to plant before we move into our panel discussion. But these are a few things that we've been seeing more companies doing over the past year or so. So the first thing is around spinning up a community forum. The reason I think this is really interesting is this also kind of relates to some recent changes we've made at Zendesk in terms of our pricing and packaging. So our new Zendesk suite, if you buy the professional tier or higher, it just comes with the community forum capabilities. It's no longer a separate thing you need to add on and buy on the side, which means we're seeing more companies than ever getting access to this capability. So it's super, super exciting. The second thing is around bringing in more sources of information. So of course, writing a Help Center article, that's a great way to document the answer to a question, but sometimes you already have other really valuable resources, things like product data sheets or a really nice blog post. And sometimes it actually makes more sense to point people to those resources. So we're seeing more people doing things by bringing in these external pieces of information and making them surfaceable through the Help Center. And then the last thing is we're seeing more and more people taking advantage of all the amazing data and analytics that can help you make really smart decisions when it comes to your self-service strategy. So we've done some really cool things with releasing new data sets at Zendesk, and I know a lot of our panelists have some thoughts on using data to make good decisions too.
They definitely do. And so with that, let's bring on our panelists and get this conversation started. So I'm super excited to welcome Gerard Cafaro from Infogix. And then we have Carl Gabai from iManage, and then our very own Melissa Birch from Zendesk. So, hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. What a wonderful group of people we have today. All right, we don't have a lot of time, and there are already a lot of great questions coming in, so we're just going to jump. And Gerard, first question comes to you, and this is, you have this really unique background in that you didn't come from support like some of the other individuals on our panel today. You have a deep background in product and design, and I'm curious, how has that influenced your self-service strategy?
Yeah, so my background in computer science and programming specifically, and we took a lot of those concepts. We had hundreds of tickets, thousands actually, requests at the time coming in to our help center support team. So we started to deploy, essentially, knowledge-based articles as requests were coming in. We saw common themes come into our support team. We saw common issues, common requests, and focusing on that knowledge-centered service, we started publishing over 1,000 articles in our first year of trying. And we grew to a point where the Help Center was becoming the first place that resources were going. We saw a drastic drop in tickets. We saw our response times and resolutions times decrease because we have the content already there that we can just link into our articles.
So it sounds like you built this culture of self-service right out of the gate by making it so easy for people to find the information, but also making the information relevant for them to get to.
That's correct, yes.
All right, Carl, you have knowledge manager in your title, but you're a little bit more than a knowledge manager for iManage. You're also a teacher, which I think is so fascinating. And so I expect that helps you influence and guide others in your organization. So what's your advice on getting buy-in from executives to expand your help center, and I'll put that in quotations, beyond just FAQs and very static, paragraphs of information?
Yeah, excellent question. That was one of the biggest things for us to overcome, actually. So for us, it was communicating that Help Center, our Zendesk guide in our case, but that our Help Center is a platform for everybody. And so what we wound up doing was by making it known that it is a platform for internal folks to share their knowledge, let subject matter experts be the ones to write articles, share information, and get things published faster versus having a backlog and not being able to provide self-service solutions quickly. That made all the difference in the world, because we were able to grow to roughly 20 teams that are now contributing content and directly from the subject matter experts, which literally changed everything almost overnight.
So that is so fascinating that you've been able to, you have 20 teams contributing into this knowledge base. And I bet you there's going to be a ton of questions on that. And so I do want to point out that Carl, Gerard, Melissa, and Jeremy are going to be in the breakout sessions. Carl, which one will you be in, just in case people want to stalk you or just ask additional questions?
Sure. I'll be in the computer software breakout room.
Awesome. And Gerard, you're going to be in technology, correct?
Technology, correct.
Great.
Yep.
All right, Melissa, this is right now the highest voted question in the Q&A, and I'm sending this to you. It comes from Dan, and he's interested in what are some strategies to maintain solid self-service while avoiding the perception that your support is hard to get in touch with. And everybody has encountered this, right?
Yes. So I love this question. And I was looking at it and I was thinking about what would I say? And so one of the things that I really encourage everyone to think about is that self-service actually should be considered a channel. And I think that's one of the things that is really a fundamental mind shift sometimes, is that it's a channel that customers actually also prefer. It's not a thing that you're actually pushing them to. It's a thing that they want. It's the channel that they prefer when they have questions that they know they can get answers to. So one of the things that I think is the biggest important strategy is to make sure that your information is published to enable it to be searchable, not only by the Help Center search, but also to the Google search engine or to the world of search. And that really enables your customers to self-select where they think they want to go, which is, as Jeremy pointed out at the beginning, 70% of the time they're going to try to find information, and they're going to probably do that through search. So make your content available, imagine that they want to, and that you're not actually forcing it, that's a thing that they really want to do.
Yeah, that's actually a model that we deployed in our instance as well. So in the header, we have a ask a question form instead of the traditional submit a ticket form. And it goes through the exact same things that you covered, Alyssa, where if a user has a specific question, we recommend them to use our community forms. If it's about just a how-to question or a Q&A. If they have an issue, we have the traditional submit a ticket form, which also searches the knowledge base when you're submitting the ticket to deflect the ticket coming in if it's already a known topic.
I'm so glad you brought up community, because we are getting so many questions about communities. And so Jeremy, I've let you rest now for a few moments here, so I'm going to direct this to you. Why do you think community forums are becoming so popular again?
You know, I think there's a couple interesting things that make it happen. I think one thing that I've seen with a few brands is that it's amazing how passionate some people are about a particular product or service, that there are customers, you know, not people who work for your company, but just customers who are super fans, people who want to talk about your service or talk about your product. And sometimes they're actually more of an expert than even some people who work for the company. And it just, you know, I think it just gives people a lot of satisfaction to be able to share that knowledge in a way that's easy and seamless. And I think as community forum technology has gotten better, it's gotten easier to use on mobile, it's gotten easier to get notifications and just have like a, you know, an easygoing conversation. I think people just find that it's a nice way to kind of give back, a nice way to share their knowledge. The other thing is, I think that as people, I think it just becomes more, I think it's just becoming more common in our culture, in our society, to find answers to questions by searching, going through Google, and oftentimes the answer to your question is in a community discussion. So I think as more and more people have that experience, as they stumble on answers that way, it just starts building more and more trust that, you know, that's a great way to find the answer to your question.
And all research shows that people actually trust their peers for reviews and assistance, oftentimes more than they trust the brand themselves, which is a little scary. I think we have social media to probably thank for that, but certainly it's real. And so the more that you can bring in your experts in your community, the better it is.
You know,
we're going to keep.
I just had one more thing I wanted to mention on that, which is, when I put my agent hat on, and I think what it was like to be an agent, of course, the best thing you could do was find a nicely written article to answer your question. But sometimes the next best thing was another ticket where someone had asked the same question and you find that same answer. And I feel like community forums are almost like, in a way, it's like taking some of your tickets and making it public. And I know, Gerard, you guys have been thinking a lot about that. And I think you guys often use your community forum as a way to make some of this information more public. I was wondering if you could maybe just talk a little bit about that mindset shift. And how did you guys decide to start doing that more with kind of guiding people to use the community? And maybe are you guys seeing that benefit of, as that becomes more public, it's easier for other customers to stumble on and find the answers on their own?
Yeah, it definitely is. To your point exactly, the community is public and tickets in nature are private. So without resources going in and capturing that knowledge and rewriting it as a knowledge-based article from a ticket, the information is not going to be out there. However, on the community, it is already out there. The question's there, the answer is there. It actually makes it even easier for our teams because we can skip through the knowledge capturing portions of our processes because the information is already public. So we encourage our customers through our Ask a Question form to use the community where it is appropriate.
And is that, so a question that's come in from Holden, and you've answered parts of this already, but any other strategies to get more of that end user buy-in to use the community forum?
Yeah, it's definitely tricky at first because it's essentially a vicious cycle. If there's no community, it's hard to get users to use it. So how do you encourage it, get that initial spark? And we started to use our community for enhancement requests and feature requests, something that are always permanently coming in at any point in time. And that helped jumpstart our community because users knew then that our community was about talking about product functionality. From there, we branched off to adopting it as a formal support channel. So it wasn't just our product management teams reviewing enhancement requests coming in through our community forums. We now had our frontline support teams reviewing the requests as well, and users can get answers to their questions and requests that way in an identical form to tickets, just public facing instead of private.
Last community question before we move on to some other self-service strategies. But this question comes in from Diana, and her company's concern is inaccuracy, that people in the community are providing inaccurate answers, and they don't necessarily have the staff to be monitoring the community 24/7. So do you still think it's worth it? And how do you mitigate that? Carl, any advice there?
Yeah, no, we feel the same. So in terms of that being a bit of a challenge, what I will say is, depending on the industry you're in. So one of the things that we're fortunately able to leverage is a partner community in addition to our support staff. And they are, in many respects equivalent to what we would have internally in terms of knowledge. But I think one of the other things that can help is that, this goes back to the combination of community involvement, but then also self-service and publishing articles, is that if over time you find that there are certain community topics that maybe you would need to address, perhaps you can have an article that makes it easier to point back to and leverage as well, that you can promote in the community, and then also give a quicker response to say, thanks for the contribution. This is something that we published on this topic for you to refer to. Where over time you can build both sides. You have the community involvement and people generating discussions that way, but then you have a way to then backfill with what references you've actually published that you can point back to.
Melissa, I think you had something else to add to that.
I do. I have a really quick point to make, and that is that you all met Nicole Saunders just a little bit ago via video, and she and her team lead a part of our community program, which is to embrace a group of super users or moderators. And those are customers like all of you, and they are so extremely excited about Zendesk that they come and they help each other and answer. Not only do they answer a lot of questions, but they help identify when there's some things that might not be quite aligned with would be the best practice, or whatever they find, they are very open about sharing those things. And I think in general, the community just overall is watching for times when things just might need to be corrected a little bit. So I think it's just building on itself. So you having some special folks who have an eye out for those moments when things might need to be corrected is a good thing. And also just trusting that the community will identify when things need to be addressed.
All right, so just to wrap up our community conversation, from what I hear, it is leverage your partners, leverage your super users, and make sure that you're publishing articles based on the things that people are talking about, so that, you know, that could be the first thing that people get to before they go to the community. And it also allows you to push that article back out to the community when maybe something isn't quite accurate. All right, awesome. Let's go back to this concept of search. This is a question that has come in around what are the most effective ways to properly map an article for searchability? Is it title, how much the article is referenced for, what tags? Like, how do you make this happen, Jeremy? Like, you talked about search, so give us the goods.
Yeah, so there's a lot of trickery that can go into making sure that your content, you know, shows up properly. There's a lot that can go into it, and it kind of comes down to where you want it to show up. So I think the first thing you got to ask yourself is, how are your users searching? Are they coming to your website and using your Help Center search? If that's what you're doing, we've got some great best practice articles on, you know, labeling your articles to make sure that you have the right keywords so they show up better in your Help Center search. If they're mostly using Google or a search engine, there's other things you can do to make sure that you're playing the game of search engine optimization to make sure it's showing up in, you know, in the Google searches. It kind of depends on, you know, where are your users coming in from. But one other thing I was thinking about is with one of our products with AnswerBot, which is our friendly little AI-powered bot that can send out, you know, article recommendations. One of the best practices we have is to try to make sure that you really phrase, well, first of all, you organize your articles so it's a single question and a single answer. So whatever the title is, if you can phrase it as a question and you can have the body really just address that one piece, that's one of the best ways to kind of take all of your content and make it these nice little consumable chunks. You don't want one article that's like the top 10 things that are all the different issues you could run into. You want to break it out into nice little chunks. And then phrasing the questions, one of those things that really helps.
That actually brings up an interesting point that we're seeing some questions around too, and that's the format of your self-service content. And one of the questions is, do you publish long form articles in the Help Center, or is it better to have these short answer FAQs? So kind of pulling off of that idea, Carl, Gerard, any advice that you have, or how do you all do it?
Yeah, that's another one that I definitely can relate to. So in our case, we have a mix of both, and what we've done is we've also leveraged Zendesk article templates to be able to create, you know, a standard format for both of those types, because there are cases where a long form is going to be a requirement. One of the key aspects there, though, is page navigation. Just adding something as simple as topic navigation at the top so people know exactly what it is they're getting into, because you can find very easily people are going to jump off of a topic if they don't get their answer quickly or think that it's not going to be answered there. Whereas then, of course, you know, if there are quick answers, kind of like what you would get in a community forum, if you can capture something that, you know, quick Q&A, this is the question, this is your answer. Someone could even see it just in one view without having to scroll. There's a lot of value in that as well. So I think having a mix is okay, but when you go to long form, make sure you do highlight exactly what it is that you're publishing in that long article and provide navigation that makes it very clear what topics are covered and how to get to a particular topic that might be most helpful.
That's awesome advice. Now, what about video? Gerard, are you all doing video as opposed to just all, you know, text?
Yeah, so we have a mix, particularly for the training articles. So we have video-based training articles in one section of our knowledge base, and another section has similar text-based articles. And we do have a mix of both. And once we had all this content out there, we started to have those same questions of, well, which ones do users use more? So we started to use deeper analytics, either through Explore or Google Analytics, to determine where are users using our Help Center. Not just the knowledge base versus community versus tickets, but even more granular, the knowledge base has categories in it. Those categories have sections within them. And when we started to break down our stats to see, well, which sections are the most popular ones? Are the training videos doing well versus the text-based articles? And similarly, we found that our videos were very popular for one product suite of ours, and the text-based articles were more popular for another product suite. So it really depends on the audience of, there's no one answer fits all, but having that deeper analytics allowed us to make the necessary decisions to continue with videos for certain products versus text-based articles for another.
Just like there's no one channel for everyone, right? So we have to have multiple channels. We have to have different formats in which our content is displayed. It's really about meeting customers where they are. Would you believe we're out of time? And I swear we barely got this conversation going. With all these questions, we could literally keep talking for the next hour and not hit them all, which is why it's so great that you're all going to be in the breakout sessions. A couple super fast questions I want to just hit on though. Jeremy, is there a difference between Zendesk's knowledge capture and its help center?
So the knowledge capture app is actually more of like an agent-facing tool that makes sure that everything that's in your help center is easily accessible to your agents. And it also makes it easy to provide feedback on articles that might need to be updated. So the two definitely work together.
Thank you for that. And last question for you, Melissa. Top tip for improving self-service resolution rate? I know it's probably a bigger question or
it is
bigger answer, but
it's super big, but I will say making sure that you write your content in the customer context is the biggest top tip that I have, which is to make sure that you're, so in other words, what does that mean? It means that when you write things in your knowledge base, that they are reflecting the way customers talk about your products and that they're not the way you internally talk about your products.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, Gerard, Carl, Jeremy, Melissa, what a pleasure. They'll see you in the breakout rooms. And with that, Jeremy, why don't you tell us what people can experience in the breakouts and how they can get there?
Yeah, so we'd love to keep this conversation going and bring everyone in the audience, into the fold with us. So I think the breakout room should be opening right about now. So near the top of your screen, you should see an option that says breakout room. And if you click on that, you'll be able to see a little list of the breakout rooms and jump into the one that's specific, to your business or the one that you're interested in.
Excellent. And with that, thank you all very much again. Enjoy your additional conversation in the breakout rooms. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.